Today, we're going to tackle a question that seems almost simple, but when you start to pull on the thread, it unravels the strange, invisible architecture of our entire modern world. You see, we live on a planet of debt, and that's not some metaphor. It's the fundamental operating system of our global economy.
And I mean, think about it. Pretty much every major country you can name, the United States, China, Japan, the nations of Europe, they're all massive debtors, which, when you stop and think about it, creates a huge, glaring paradox. If everyone owes money,
And they owe this much, a number so big it's almost meaningless, $315 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's nearly 3 times the value of the entire global economy. 3 times every car, every coffee, every computer, every service produced by all of humanity in a year. When you have an IOU that big, well, it leads to one single unavoidable question.
Right? Who did we borrow it from? To whom does planet Earth owe this colossal fortune? It seems impossible. If everybody is a borrower, who or what is the creditor?
And here's the answer, which is both incredibly simple and, honestly, kind of weird. The world owes this money to itself. Okay, let's unpack that, because figuring out this strange loop is the absolute key to understanding how money, debt, and power really work in the 21st century.
so this system didn't just appear out of nowhere. It had to be built. The very idea of debt had to be transformed from, a personal IOU between neighbors into a powerful tool for nations. And it all kicked off, like so many big financial ideas do, because of a war.
It really starts in 1694. The Bank of England gets created specifically to lend the government money to fight a war with France, and in the process, they invent the modern government bond. This was a complete game changer. Suddenly, a country could spend money it didn't actually have. Fast forward to 1944. After World War II, the Bretton Woods Conference pegs all the world's currencies to the US dollar, which itself was backed by gold. Solid, right? Well, there was a problem. The global economy was growing way faster than the world supply of gold. So in 1971, President Nixon made a move that changed everything. He completely severed the dollar's link to gold. And just like that, the era of money backed only by confidence, fiat currency, was born, opening the floodgates for borrowing on a scale never before seen.
So that brings us right back to our central mystery. With governments borrowing these astronomical sums, who on earth has trillions of dollars just lying around to lend them? Well, the popular idea of some shadowy global banker is, for the most part, just wrong. The reality is much more ordinary. It's really an inside job. The lenders really fall into 4 main buckets. You've got domestic lenders, which are people and institutions inside the country itself. You have foreign lenders, like other governments. Then there are international institutions, like the World Bank or the IMF. And finally, and this is a crucial one, you have a nation's own central bank.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this busts a huge myth. We hear all the time that countries like China own America's debt. And yeah, they hold a piece of it, but just look at this breakdown. A massive 70% of U.S. debt is held right at home. It's owned by American banks, it's in our pension funds, it's even held by other parts of the U.S. government itself in trust funds. So the big takeaway here is this. For the most part, America owes money to Americans.
Okay, so all of this is leading us to probably the most important and least understood concept in all of modern finance. This is the big secret of the whole system, and it goes against everything you've probably ever been taught about what debt is.
I know, that sounds absolutely insane. When you or I take out a loan for a car or a house, the whole point is to pay it back. We just naturally think that's how national debt must work too. But it's not. For major economies, the debt is never really meant to be paid off. And this isn't some conspiracy theory, it's just how the system is designed to function.
So how is that possible? How do they get away with it? It's through a pretty simple process called rolling over the debt. Let's say a 10-year bond the government sold back in 2015 is about to come due. The government doesn't just find the money in its tax revenue to pay the bondholder back. No way. Instead, it just issues a brand new bond today and uses the cash it gets from selling that new bond to pay off the person holding the old one. The total amount of debt doesn't go down at all. It just gets kicked down the road. It's kind of like the government is treating its debt like a Netflix subscription it never, ever cancels. It just keeps paying the monthly fee, the interest, forever.
And here is the ultimate mind-bending paradox. This system actually needs the debt to never be paid back. Why? Because government bonds, especially U.S. Treasury bonds, are considered the safest financial asset on the planet. They are the bedrock, the foundation that the entire global financial system is built on. If a country like the United States actually tried to pay off all its debt, it would have to suck trillions and trillions of dollars out of the economy. It would literally vaporize the world's money supply and trigger an economic collapse that would make the Great Depression look like a walk in the park.
So, if the debt is never really going to be repaid, does that mean it doesn't matter? The governments can just borrow forever with no consequences? Absolutely not. The entire system is built on one single fragile thing: confidence. It's all a high-wire act, and if that confidence starts to wobble, the whole thing can come crashing down.
There are really four big dangers lurking. There's the debt trap, where a country is borrowing new money just to pay the interest on its old money, which squeezes out all other public spending. There's inflation, which is basically a government printing money to pay its bills, which acts like a stealth tax on everyone's savings. Then you have a market revolt. This is when the powerful anonymous investors, they're sometimes called bond vigilantes, suddenly lose faith and refuse to buy a country's debt, causing interest rates to skyrocket. And finally, the worst-case scenario: sovereign default. That's the financial heart attack, the moment a country just holds up its hands and says, we can't pay.
And if you want a perfect real-world example of what happens when confidence just evaporates, just look at the UK in the fall of 2022. A new government came in and announced huge tax cuts without saying how they'd pay for them. The market, those bond vigilantes, took one look at the plan and basically said, no way. They panicked, they started dumping UK government bonds, which caused interest rates and mortgage payments to spike, nearly collapsed the country's pension system, and forced the brand new prime minister to resign in a matter of weeks. That's how fast it can happen. That is the raw power of the market keeping governments in check.
But the danger isn't just about these sudden, dramatic collapses. This system has another effect. It's a slow, grinding, and deeply personal one. Over time, it's become a massive engine for transferring wealth.
Let's just break it down simply. Where does the money to pay the interest on all this national debt come from? Well, it comes from taxes. Taxes paid by the general population, by ordinary working people. And where do those billions in interest payments go? They go to the people and institutions who own the bonds, which is overwhelmingly commercial banks, huge investment funds, and the wealthiest individuals. So what you have is a constant upward flow of wealth, from the general taxpayer to the asset-owning class.
Which leaves us with one final, really crucial question to chew on. On one hand, debt is the tool that built our modern world. It allows us to fund everything from wars to infrastructure to pandemic responses. But on the other hand, it creates these huge risks and clearly drives inequality. So which is it? Is this invisible system of global debt a kind of scaffolding that holds our entire world up? Or is it a cage that grows heavier and heavier every single day, trapping us all in a cycle we can't seem to escape?